Normally we lower this from the shaded side of the boat, but as we can see today it's quite cloudy, so that's not going to affect it either way. And like I mentioned, I basically lower this until it becomes no longer visible. I record that depth, which is roughly about 3 meters here. I start bringing it up until it becomes clearly visible again, which is about 2 meters, and basically we average those two measurements, which would be 2.5 meters. I'm now going to demonstrate how we get sediment samples from the seabed. Often people assume that in order to get sediment samples we do so by diving, but that's not actually necessary, as we use this piece of equipment here which is specifically designed for that purpose. This is called a Van Veen grab, and as you can see it basically operates as a scooping device. Once we open it and we hatch it into place, it's just a question of lowering it down to the seabed with a rope and tugging on it, and that will basically scoop any sediment up with it. Okay, we have the Van Veen grab now fully open and latched into place. So now we just lower it until it hits the seabed, but we do so very slowly. And there we go. Now, sediment sampling, we don't do it on a monthly basis, we do it once every quarter. So on a monthly basis, our samples are sent to our laboratories in the UK to be analysed for nutrient levels and biological elements. Once every quarter, we carry out a more comprehensive set of sampling, so in addition to the nutrients and biological elements that are analysed, we also analyse water samples for priority substances, toxins, heavy metals and other pollutants. Basically, our results are classified and characterised on a 5-year basis, and the idea being that using the results and information that we have, we're able to establish what status these water bodies actually achieve. Our latest characterization shows that both our coastal and heavily modified water bodies both achieve good status, both in terms of its chemical and biological elements.
This is Seven Sisters Beach. It's one of the marine conservation zones. The reason why it's called Seven Sisters is because of the rock pinnacles that you can see in the distance. It's one of the few areas in Gibraltar where the natural reef habitat is practically untouched. And the wildlife here is extremely abundant. The good thing about areas like Seven Sisters is because they've been untouched, and is that they can really be used as a template or a pilot case to be used in schools, for example, in environmental education programs. The department has been spearheading its environmental education program now for nearly 10 years, and the intention is to continue expanding the program with marine conservation, other issues as well, such as renewable energy, and all the other different environmental issues that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. But having the opportunity to bring students into the field and for them to see what the legislation and the policies are all about and how they can make a difference is really fantastic. Well, the marine protection regulations are probably one of the more significant pieces of environmental legislation that have been published recently. The regulations set out to regulate a myriad of marine activities such as fishing, diving, snorkeling, even dolphin tour operators. So in that sense, they've been a really important step forward in terms of marine conservation. That aside, they also introduced a number of key management measures, which in a way were long overdue, such as the creation of marine conservation zones, the creation of no anchoring zones, and also introducing something as trivial as minimum fish sizes, which we didn't have in Gibraltar. So in that respect, the regulations really have been pioneering.
Little black submarines, operator, please put me back on the line.
Bluefin tuna, for example, is an excellent example of how adequate and really well thought conservation laws can result in practice. The stocks of bluefin tuna have increased within the Mediterranean, and that has resulted in the influx and the large number of tuna fish that we see in the summer season in the bay. Obviously, we need to be responsible and we need to manage that fishery essentially, hence the reason why there are licensing requirements under the marine protection regulations specifically for tuna fishing.
That a broken heart is blind. Pick you up, let you down.
The no anchoring zones are one of the key measures that are introduced in the marine protection regulations. The reason behind the no anchoring zones is because obviously the large vessels in particular have anchors, and when they drop their anchors they can result in damage to marine habitats such as reefs. So in order to prevent this, a no anchoring zone was designated. The zone extends up to 1.5 nautical miles on the east side of Gibraltar. It then comes into Europa Reef, and it protects the areas such as Europa Reef, and which is known colloquially as La Seca, and another very important reef known as Lo Pico, which are fantastic dive sites in Gibraltar, and relatively few Gibraltarians have actually had the opportunity to dive there because A, you need to be an experienced diver, and B, because of the dangerous conditions that you find yourself in. It's a dive that goes from 15 meters all the way down to 90 meters, and they're essentially steep pinnacles that extend from the straits all the way up, so it's not for the faint-hearted. Surveillance monitoring is essentially monitoring the conditions of our marine environment, or assessing the conditions of our marine environment, and there are a wide range of ways of doing that. The department, for example, has been doing a coastal water monitoring program since 2007. So we've already begun collecting a substantial database on the chemical water quality of our waters. But in addition to that, the surveillance monitoring encapsulates a number of other features that are important in assessing our marine environment. For example, we rely a lot on the information provided by NGOs, non-governmental organizations such as the GONS, who carry out regular seabird monitoring activities from Europa Point, and that helps us build a picture of what's really happening in our waters and the states of our waters. To be honest, there's still a lot that we don't know. One of those areas, for example, is the deep water ecosystems in British Gibraltar territorial waters. We actually have reefs that go down to nearly 800 meters, which is nearly twice the height of the rock, but we haven't had the chance to go down and explore due to obvious reasons. Hopefully, as the surveillance monitoring program continues to expand, we'll be able to see what's happening down there in the depths. And we have anecdotal evidence. For example, we know that species such as sperm whales, for example, they use that habitats in Gibraltar waters. They dive down to nearly 600, 700 meters, and they'll feed on the deep water squid that you can find in Gibraltar. There's also evidence to suggest that we might have some rare shark species such as the six-gill shark. But we don't really know. We haven't been able to prove it yet. What we do know is that there are certainly creatures of the deep on our doorstep, and hopefully we'll be able to film what's happening down there and show the wider public the richness that Gibraltar has to offer.
The department monitors our marine realm in terms of water for chemical, biological and physical parameters, and for the amount of usage that we have of our waters, we're very lucky that they're in a very good state. We've got corals, we've got a lot of species that indicate very good water quality in Gibraltar. And I think that because of the close working relationships between industry and the regulators, and the department obviously plays a role in this, we can boast that we've got very good water quality, we've got good sustainable fish stocks, we've got good habitats, and we are increasingly seeing regeneration of species, of key species. When you put into context the size of Gibraltar, the limited marine realm or resource that we have, we really are doing a good job at managing it.